Well, yeah, I'd just like to talk about tubulars today, and this is a bit of a antique, chaotic design of putting tyres on rims. But what I'd like to actually delve into today is that these old relics are maybe not so, what do you call it, archaic as people may think. Well, first of all, let's just talk about what a tubular is. Now, a tubular is not a tubeless. Tubeless is where you don't actually have a tube in a Clincher design tyre. A tubular is a completely different design where the rim has no hooks on it. And because there's no hooks on it, obviously there's nothing to hold the tyre on. So what it is the tyre is sewn up, and this is actually one of the names that they use for these type of tyres. It's called sewn ups. And so what you've got is you've got a tyre that is sewn together in like a donut, and then you use either double-sided tape or contact cement to stick it to the rim. So there is no hooks. There's just basically a half moon shape on the top of the rim that allows you to affix it to the rim. Number one reason why a tubular is better than a Clincher. First of all, the design where a Clincher actually clips onto the hooks, and on the other side of the hooks is the brake track, is really the biggest disadvantage to a Clincher. And this is why manufacturers have moved to disc brake bikes, to get the brake track away from that hook, because they've had failures with Clinchers, because as the brake track heats up and it gets close to 200 degrees C, the actual hook which the brake track is next to gets soft, the resins in the carbon get soft. And the pressure of the tyre, which could be between 80 and 100 psi, basically pushes that hook out and blows the tyre off the rim. And of course then you end up on the deck and you have a rim failure. Now with a tubular, it's quite different, because there's two mechanisms that basically stop this from happening. And the first one is that the tyre is encapsulated in a completely separate cell, which is the tyre, and that tyre is sewn up, and it's only stuck onto the rim either with contact cement or tubular tape. That's the first reason. So there's no pressure behind the brake track. The second reason is that there is actually a brace that goes across the very top to actually give the brake track support. So you even know that the brake track itself may get very hot, the part that's actually bracing the tyre will actually have some coefficient reduction of temperature as you go towards the centre of the tyre. So a tubular inherently won't have the same failure mode as a Clincher when it comes to these brake tracks getting hot and the hooks failing. Okay, the other massive advantage that a tubular has is they're inherently lighter. They're the lightest form of rims you can buy if you compare depth and carbon. Now the reason why this is because they don't need to have all that carbon and all that strength in the hooks to hold the tyre on the rim. And they're usually around about 200 to 300 grams lighter, easy, sometimes even 500 grams lighter. So you've got a tyre that has less weight in the wheel, which is the rotating mass. And you really notice is it takes, for people to get, 200, 300, 400, 500 grams out of a bike, it actually can be quite difficult. But if you go to tubular rims, you get this straight away. So number two reason, tubular rims are a lot lighter than all other designs. Okay, number three for tubulars, why tubulars are a very good option to pick, is because a tubular doesn't suffer from snake bite punctures like you can with a Clincher. If you run your Clincher too slow or you haven't pumped it up enough and you go over a bit of a bump, you can pinch the tube on the two hooks that hold the tyre on. So you can get what they call a snake bite puncture. Now tubulars don't suffer from this, so you can run your pressures on a tubular quite low. I've run mine down to 40 psi, and that's just like a normal 25 or 23 mil, and to make it really nice and comfy. And you can also run them up to 180 psi like they do on the track bikes. So you've got a much more variance of pressure that you can run with a tubular, which you haven't got when you basically have a Clincher on your bike. Number four reason why tubulars are a good option is because when you actually get a flat on a Clincher, the tyre separates, it comes out of the hooks, it separates, and you basically got your hooks riding on the road. They're rolling along on the tarmac, and if you keep riding, you're going to basically damage your rim. But with a tubular, this is not the case. If you get a flat tyre, the tyre's still stuck to the rim. And you can actually still ride the bike quite slowly on a tubular flat tyre. I've actually done it. I've rode about 5 k's home on a flat tubular. Admittedly, I was only going like 5-10 kilometres an hour, but in a pinch, you can actually still travel. You can travel some distance on a flat tubular, albeit at a slow speed. So it gives you that other option that you haven't got with a Clincher. Okay, number five reason, which is the last reason, is generally when you buy these expensive rims, carbon rims, they're quite expensive, but tubulars are always a little bit cheaper, and you can even get the Chinese counterparts, and they're always cheaper. They're always a little bit cheaper than the Clincher tyres. And I mean, this is an advantage. I know it's not a big advantage, but you still save a bit of money to get a tyre or a rim combination that is a lighter combination than if you had a Clincher. I mean, you can buy carbon Clincher rims and they're still like, 1,1800 grams, while say tubular tyre of the same thing will probably be maybe 1,400 grams. So not only are you saving weight, but they're also a little bit cheaper to buy. The question that's on everyone's lips is well, what do you do if you get a puncture, and you're a long way from home and you don't want to ride on a flat tyre at 5 k's an hour to get home? And what do? Well, what you do is you actually have a spare tyre with you. And if you look at one of my other videos, I actually show how you can fold up a tubular tyre into a very small package so it fits in your jersey pocket, or it fits in one of those, tool containers you can fit in your drink holder. So, you can carry that tyre with you and you can put a new tyre on. And you can actually change a tyre on a tubular very quickly, much quicker than you can on a Clincher. And okay, yeah, you might not stick it on with your glue, you can just put it on, but you could even carry some double-sided tape if you wanted to put on, but if you wanted to carry that extra. But yeah, you can put the tyre on the rim quite quickly. They're not that hard to change because you don't need any tools to lever the tyre off. You just basically work it and then you just pull it off, and you can put your tape on, or you can just put the tyre on without any tape or any glue, pump it up, and generally it will hold as long as you don't go hammering around corners, flat out. So that's what you do. The other thing you can do is you can use something like this, which is like a stand, and you can put that in. Now this little bowl here, you can have like a little piece of tube that you use to put it into the valve. You take the valve out and you can pour this in, and generally that fixes most punctures, unless it's like a cut. The stand is pretty good. It'll fix your tyre. You can get 60, 70 psi into it. That can get you home. In fact, in most cases, you can leave that stuff in. The tyre's fixed, and just you keep riding and keep pumping it up, and it's fine. As long as you don't let this stuff sit in your tyre and left the tyre go flat, because then it sticks the tubes together. That's a big mistake people make. So yeah, you can fix the tyres, and if you get a puncture, you can get yourself home. Yeah. So in conclusion, I think the reason why people are a little bit scared of tubulars is because they don't know how to put them on. They're a bit of a manual form of putting on, because you can get the tyre needs to be mounted in a way where you actually straighten it, you put it on the rim, and if you're using glue, the glue can be a bit intimidating because it's that same stuff that they use for sticking on laminates, and you can end up like Spider-Man when you put it on. I think that puts a lot of people off. But I used to use the glue years ago, but I use the tape now, and for general riding, the tape is absolutely fine. Don't be afraid of tubulars. They are a really good option, and they are a great way to make your riding safer, especially if you're going down hills, because there's no problems with the tyre blowing off the hooks, and also they give much better ride. There's no snake bites. Generally, I don't have that many punctures, even though I do carry a spare tyre and I do carry my stands around with me, but I very rarely have to use it. Okay guys, well, don't dismiss tubulars as this archaic tyre system that only the pros or the old fuddy-duddies use. They actually are a great system, and I use it for commuting, I use them for everything, and I basically have very little trouble with them. Thanks guys for watching. Remember to ding that bell and subscribe if you like the content. Thanks very much.